everybody. Okay, hello and welcome to today's DataVox webinar, Cybersecurity for Your Suddenly Remote Workforce, presented by Arctic Wolf and Cohesity. My name is Jessica and I will be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this webinar through Cisco WebEx events, and the audio can be heard through your PC or by calling into the phone number listed and with the access code provided in your confirmation email or calendar invite for this event. Today's webinar is being recorded on behalf of DataVox, and participation in this event indicates your consent to being included in that recording. All attendees will receive an email with a link to the completed recording 24 to 48 hours post-event. If you have any questions for the presenters at any time during this presentation, you may submit those questions via the Q&A feature to the bottom right of your screen. This should already be turned on. Simply click Q&A and the text box will appear. Our panel will be responding to these questions throughout the presentation via text and will respond verbally at the conclusion of the presentation. If you are in need of support or have a question not pertaining to today's topic, please utilize the chat feature and I will be happy to assist you. This feature is separate from the Q&A feature and can be turned on by clicking the chat bubble in the lower center of your screen. Now that we have reviewed the features of this webinar, we'd like to start off today's presentation with a few words from our Director of Enterprise Sales at DataVox, Chris Butler. Chris, the floor is yours.
Safe to say that we all find ourselves working in a unique work environment. Many of us are managing IT solutions and services that were primarily set up for office-based workforce, and now we find ourselves managing those exact same services, exact same solutions. But we're doing it today for a remote workforce, so that became some unique challenges. So we thought, let's pull together some of the services out there, solutions that we can help you guys with that would help solve some of these challenges. And one of those is how we handle cybersecurity. And not only that, from a cybersecurity perspective, but if things were to go, in a direction we weren't anticipating, how do we get back to where we're fully at 100% productivity and 100% production? So with that, we brought together two great partners, Arctic Wolf and Cohesity. I kind of joke about it with these guys, kind of like pairing a fine wine and a good steak. Depending who's talking, they might both claim to be the fine wine, but we'll let them tell you about that part. So with that, I want to get these guys going, hand the floor over to them, and let them share a little bit about their story and how we can help solve some of these challenges as we're trying to manage these remote workforce. All right, Nat, over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Give me just a second here, and I'll share my screen.
Go get, what do you want? What do you do?
All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Like what?
I'll take that as a yes. Hi, my name is Nat Chikoria. I am the Senior Sales Engineer for South Texas. I'm also accompanied here with my account executive, Grant Gowrie. What we want to talk about is managing risk in a work-at-home world. Unfortunately, with the COVID-19, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say that. Everyone seems to be afraid to say the word, but because of the COVID-19 threat that's kind of been looming over the last couple of months and seems like it's going to be continuing on, we're going to talk about exactly how we can actually secure your network even with your remote and at-home workers. To kick it off, we're going to talk about across the industry challenges, remote worker security challenges. Of course, how can Arctic Wolf assist in this, along with our partner DataVox? And we're going to talk about our managed detection and response service, as well as managing risk with our managed risk service. And then, of course, talk about how actually we price our solution. Of course, some of the challenges we have right now, of course, is the fear of phishing. You're seeing all these COVID-19 cures and emails coming out, stimulus checks, and then, of course, free test kit registrations. All these possibly could be phishing attacks aimed at you guys. Right now, kind of one statistic there from Checkpoint, there's been 16,000 domains registered since January. And 200 are already considered suspicious, and 93 confirmed have been using malware. The other thing too is, of course, endpoint vulnerability. Coming in from home, if you're using a home device or something of that nature, again, there's no scanning or nothing done on those particular endpoints. And along with that, of course, people are bringing their own devices, and if they're not VPNing in with company VPN, that's also another point of attack that it could definitely be closed up just by simply using a company VPN. Of course, some of the actual first steps would be to do multi-factor authentication. basically two-factor authentication, not allowing just a password to be used to actually get into the network. Of course, maybe some training as well, home cyber defense information, password management, longer, stronger passwords. Of course, using cloud versus external drives. And of course, take your time before just jumping out to open ports to give somebody some type of access to your network. And of course, communication versus secure communications as well, making sure everything's encrypted that you're actually doing between you and your remote workers. This is kind of an example. We just talked about multi-factor authentication, and this actually happened. The user was wasn't actually trying to log in herself. It was an actual hacker. They got a ticket about the user not being able to get in. They basically disabled multi-factor authentication and then basically allowed the actual hacker to actually gain access to this person's account. If you want to read it, it's up there on Reddit. Of course, securing your home networks. Some of the things that we don't really think about every day, but as far as SSID on your home network, it's better to maybe hide that SSID. Change the admin name of your router. Most routers at home are admin. Also, in that respect, like I said, don't broadcast it. Don't use WEP or WPS. Try to use WPA2 or AES or Latency or something better. And the other thing too, as far as about your SSID, don't make it your home address or something of that nature. Something be simple, or give an actual someone that's trying to actually infiltrate you more information than you need to. Password management as well. A lot of people using the same passwords, like winter 2020 or summer 2020 apparently has been some of the top passwords that actually people are using. Use stuff like LastPass or 1Pass, which actually will create a random password and store it on your browser. But as far as from a password for those particular devices, use a phrase or something of that nature to protect that rather than just a simple password. And then again, use personal VPNs. I know here at Arctic Wolf, anytime we connect to our network, we're utilizing a VPN to connect in. It's actually pretty simple to use. It keeps all the traffic encrypted, and that way it's keeping your security footprint smaller and safer. And of course, also disable location services on laptops. Just little things like this can again help in immense ways. This is a little exercise if you guys all want to participate. There's a site out there called showdown.io, and what I'm going to show you here is, in fact, we'll do a demonstration. If you go out to Google and you type in "what is my IP address," you'll get your IP address here, and you can copy it. And you go out to Showdown.io and actually paste that IP address into the little search thing. If you click that and search, I'm probably going to break their website with everybody out here doing it at the same time. And you should get no results found. If you get results found, meaning ports and stuff like that open, you really need to take a look at your wireless router and kind of see what's going on, making sure that you really meant to have those ports open, because this is basically, again, just a way for infiltrators to actually get into your home network. Today where everybody's running EcoBees and Nest thermostats and stuff of that nature, the whole automated home, it's definitely important to make sure that you secure your at-home devices. Probably, like I said, I probably might have just broke the site with all the participants probably going out to this port right now. But yeah, so the results, it should be no results found if you do go out there, or at least if there's something open, something that you know that is open, and there's no surprises there. So all this said, how can Arctic Wolf actually help you guys from a corporate perspective? Just kind of a little stat here. As far as when a hacker actually gets onto someone's network, typically it takes people 230 days just to detect that particular infiltration, and then another 84 days to actually contain it and remediate. Again, this is kind of staggering. I mean, if you look at some of the things that have happened with Home Depot, just recently Marriott hotels chain, they've been hacked multiple times. Again, it's something that's out there. It's something serious, and something you don't want to do is get yourself in the news. You definitely want to stay out of the news, and then keep your reputation for your company. But some of the problems we have right now is there's too much noise. Everybody has all kinds of tools. They have antivirus, they have IDS, they have firewalls, and all these things produce, just tons and tons and tons of logs. And it just becomes to where people look at them, and then after a while it becomes basically just a mailbox. And we look at them once in a while because, again, it just kind of takes that right kind of person to really comb through those logs. The other problem right now is the security skill shortage, especially in the cybersecurity arena. There's actually a negative employment rate for cybersecurity analysts here in the Houston area. Just finding actual and retaining those people has been a challenge. What happens is a larger company will get hacked and they'll need more cybersecurity people. Next thing you know, your people are being hired away for 20, 30% more money. The other thing is cost of response time. Again, it becomes expensive to actually try to get these people off. If you don't have the means or the know-how of how to actually get them out of your network or how to actually seal up those holes, again, it does become quite costly. So what is Arctic Wolf? How does Arctic Wolf help? We provide 24/7 coverage for all of your infrastructure and remote workforce. We identify new threats as well as potential vulnerabilities in your attack surface. We help you quickly respond if there's an incident. We want to always say, we want you to think of us as an extension of your team. Yes, we're a service, but again, we do assign two SOC security analysts to your actual company that you can actually call on, from 8 to 5 with anything that you need from them, whether it be reporting, whether it be in certain investigations, stuff of that nature. They're available from 8 to 5 for you to, to actually utilize as actually an extension of your team. But we also, again, do provide that 24/7, 365-day coverage of actually making sure and protecting, making sure that your network is protected and that your enterprise is being looked over. Arctic Wolf actually used the NEST cybersecurity framework, and this kind of also ties in with our partner also, Cohesity, that's here today. NIST, actually, we had to identify, protect, detect, respond, and then when it comes to actually recovery, Cohesity can definitely help in that arena. We offer 2 services at Arctic Wolf, our managed risk service and our managed detection response service. One is actually our managed risk is used for vulnerability scanning, constant vulnerability scanning within your network. It's going to look for vulnerabilities, and it's also going to prioritize those vulnerabilities for you to actually take care of them. It's not just going to give you a list of 400, 500 vulnerabilities, hey, go take care of them. It's going to prioritize those on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being the highest risk vulnerability, 1 being a lower risk. But it at least gives you a way to actually go in and start attacking those vulnerabilities in a systematic way. The managed detection and response, of course, is our 24/7 monitoring and looking for threats, looking through all your logs. And it's also going to basically tell if there is somebody that gets on your network, or if there is some type of exploit, we're going to tell you how to actually remediate it and take care of it. Again, speaking about Concierge security team, again, like I was saying, they're named experts, named security experts that are available 8 to 5 in your time zone. We have an emergency 5-minute response time that, again, they're there to help you out. They're also going to understand what your network looks like. Again, the same 2 people are the people that are assigned to your account, so it's not like you're having to call in and re-explain your network and what's going on with yourself internally. Our experts will already have that knowledge, again, therefore not just calling into a 1-800 number and getting some random person. The other thing is, too, they'll do the remote forensics for you. They're going to be threat hunting and kind of doing that last mile. They're there to relieve of your workload, not add to it. And of course, if there's any advice you need from them, such as, what other types of security devices can I deploy to make my life easier, they're there for you as far as for security insight and advice. This is kind of how our managed detection response works. There's kind of 3 pieces to it. We have the Arctic Wolf physical sensor, which actually goes between the trusted side of your firewall and your network. We have the Arctic Wolf agent, which should be deployed on all the laptops, desktops, and servers within your network. And then we also have our Arctic Wolf cloud connectors. If you're using something like Office 365, Box, G Suite, Azure, AWS, or any of those type of cloud the particular applications, whether, we actually have APIs into those. I mean, this is just a small list of what you actually can actually you should attach to. There's actually, again, more, but that's just an example. With the Arctic Wolf sensor, we're going to be looking at the firewall logs. It becomes a log aggregator, your DNS logs. So everything is actually sent to this as a syslogs, all the syslogs from all these different devices. It packages that syslog, compresses it, and encrypts it and sends it up to our actually threat intelligence cloud, which is sitting in Amazon, AWS, Amazon Cloud. The next part is our Arctic Wolf agent. All your desktops and laptops that are out there in the field, people that take their laptops home, they're protected by the Arctic Wolf agent. So we're actually going to get telemetry data from those laptops, desktops, even though they're not on your current network at the time, and that data is sent again directly to Arctic Wolf's cloud. So, and finally, again, we've already kind of touched on the Arctic Wolf cloud connectors. Again, that list is growing. And then the other service we have is our Arctic Wolf Managed Risk, which is our continuous vulnerability scanning. We actually scan internally, externally, and then we also are scanning the host for host-based vulnerabilities. It also acts as an asset. Excuse me. It's also going to be an asset collector as far as give you the ability to see what assets are on your network. It's actually going to do this whether it has the actual agent or not on the actual endpoint. We're going to be also classifying network devices as well. The external vulnerability assessment also scans the dark web as well, looking for account takeover, stuff of that nature, to make sure that basically no one's using accounts out there on some other third-party website that they may be using internally. It would actually jeopardize your security. And lastly, this is kind of how that architecture works. We're using an actual a vulnerability scanner which actually sits on your VMware infrastructure. Again, it's going to actually be scanning for all the devices on your network if there's any vulnerabilities, and then it's also going to classify those vulnerabilities and rank them from 1 to 10. That same agent that we use in the MDR is also going to be used for the managed risk service as well. Again, it's going to look for endpoint vulnerability, system vulnerabilities. And the other cool part about this is we also can do CIS benchmarking. And what that means is you can ask us to do a CIS benchmark on, let's just say, a certain server or type of server. We'll come back and actually give you a report, and actually you'll be able to see how secure that server is. And also it's going to give you information on how to harden that server, how to make it more secure. So, simple things like length of password, what services don't need to be running on that particular endpoint. Again, this is some of the stuff that the CIS benchmarking can do for you. And then, of course, like I said earlier, the external Arctic Wolf scan as well is going to be looking for vulnerabilities from the outside, looking at your DNS web apps as well that are open to the internet, and any publicly accessible ports that are open on your firewall. And again, the dark web looking for that account takeover. Last part of this is our actual predictable pricing. The other thing that Arctic Wolf doesn't do is charge for how much capacity you guys are using, how much logs you're sending us, based on basically 3 simple things: the number of users, the number of servers, and then how many actual sensors we need to deploy in your environment. And with that said, that's all I have on the Arctic Wolf side. If you have any questions, please ask them now, or I don't know if we're asking questions before or after the webinar, but I'd be happy to answer.
Actually, Nat, it looks like I do see a question in the Q&A here. How much latency does this device cause?
Typically, we don't see any latency, as far as, because what happens is the logs are actually packaged at the sensor, compressed and sent up. So the actual the log data is actually very minimal because of the compression. The fact that logs are mostly text, really does not introduce latency.
Okay, great. And if none of the other panelists are seeing any other questions,
there's one more question. Does AW have anything to detect ransomware? If so, do you have any case studies?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As far as we've had a lot of customers that we have the ability, especially from a ransomware perspective, and again, in a case-by-case basis, we definitely have case studies. There are, I could actually send it out or have Jessica send out a list of actual case studies that we have on our actual website and references. And then again, there are some stuff where we've stopped ransomware and stuff of that nature. We actually have the ability with our agent to actually quarantine or shut off as far as access to an actual host. And depending on how you want us to actually implement that, if we detect it, say on a desktop, then you can say, hey, if it's a desktop, shut it down immediately. If it's a server, call us first. Or depending on what the actual threat is. Typically, ransomware, that's something that's serious, and they want us to isolate a host with ransomware immediately.
We had another one come up here. It says, is there anything unique Arctic Wolf does as compared to other SIM providers?
Yeah, and again, I think the most unique thing, and it's kind of funny, and it's somewhat flattering, is that Security Concierge team is there as members, become almost members of the actual customers team. Most of the other providers that are similar to us don't assign people to accounts. You'll actually get to know that Security Concierge team, personally. That's who you call. That's who you would actually interact with typically on an 8 to 5 basis. And then of course we do have our SOC, our 24-hour SOC, if it's something after hours. But if something does come up, they immediately alert that team that's connected to that account so that they know what is going on. And I think some of the other things too is we don't rely on third-party tools. We've developed everything in-house. We do have third-party threat feeds, but as far as all of our tools, our SIM, everything else is developed in-house. So we're not making people buy licensing or anything of that nature. And I'll turn it over to Scott. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, sir. Everybody see my screen? We're good? So you have two people on here from Cohesity standpoint. We've got Sam Allen and Scott Evler. We're going to get to Sam as quickly as possible. He's going to do a live demo today on what happens if ransomware gets detected and it's already started encrypting a lot of your data. Traditionally, most people are going to go out there and do a restore, which if you're talking large amounts of data, is going to take hours, maybe days. We're going to show you how we can get that data back up and running as quickly as possible and convert days and hours down to minutes and seconds. So I'll start off just a little bit about who we are, right? We're basically combining Nutanix and Google into your enterprise environment, right? Our founder was a co-founder of Nutanix and was the lead at Google. So if you take Google and bring it to your environment today, that's going to be who we are. If you think about, Gartner even says that most customers are not happy with what their current infrastructure is today from a data protection standpoint, because if you get down to it, there's been little to no change in this area. So what Mohit started out to do is bring Google into this space so that you have that same search capabilities and analytics of your data down to one platform. So Google manages the world's data like this, and this is all consumer data, right? It all sits on one platform. You've got a manageability layer on top of it if you're actually using it from a selling standpoint. And they've also got apps to mine the data, right? So we've done the same thing for your data, right? Because if you think about your environment, you've got a data center, you've got chunks of data over here in remote offices, and maybe if you're going to cloud or have data in the cloud, you've got multiple products managing all this. And you've got different pieces of data all over the place. So how do I protect it? Well, what most people have is multiple products, right? From a data protection product to what's my target? Maybe tape. Maybe for NAS data, I've got something else for NAS data. And if I want to go to the cloud, I'm potentially using some other gateways or other products out there. So what we're seeing customers doing is they're typically eliminating 3 to 5 products down to 1, and anytime I do that, I can start driving massive amounts of efficiencies in your environment. So the 2 ways to get data on Cohesity so we can do the magic that we do is either through data protection or a file. We also have all the native cloud integration built into the product, whether it's an on-prem cloud or the big 3 public, right, to send data to the cloud, but we can also run it software only. So if you've made the investment to, you know what, I'm going to be 100% in the cloud, what am I going to do to protect the data that's up there? What if I have long-term retention needs, right? We become that engine for that as well. So many, many use cases here that we can dig into at another time. But that's the main goal of Cohesity, is to get the data on the platform. Once I have all the data on the platform, I've now consolidated all the different management planes and maintenance contracts. Sam will go into Helios. So in the Houston space that we are here today, think of all the oil and gas companies that have maybe 10, 20, 30, 50 remote sites. We've got a single UI to manage it all, whether it's on-prem, cloud, or remote site. And then we also have what we call a marketplace. The marketplace is literally just like you have on your phone from an app store type standpoint, to where, I'll give an example, one of these apps over here will monitor your file shares and do audit logging, tell you who accessed it, what day, what time, who made the change in your environment. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of who Cohesity is. And once we have the data, we can do all kinds of things with it. So next will be Sam. He'll be going through and discussing how we can address ransomware and get you quickly going in the event that it ever happens.
Right. Thank you, Scott. Hey, I am going to share my screen here. And I trust that WebEx still works and everyone can see my screen. So, hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sam Allen. I'm a systems engineer with Cohesity, based here in Houston. And along with Scott and a couple of other peers, we cover the Houston area as well as the Louisiana market. So as Scott mentioned, our platform is quite broad in terms of use cases that we address. Folks come to us for a number of different reasons, whether they're looking for a backup or data protection solution. Many times it's to facilitate DR through automation. Other times it's for cloud native backup for services like Azure VMs, Amazon EC2, Amazon RDS are good examples. And then other times it's for a data platform. They're looking for a software-defined solution that can deploy NAS and object protocols for those types of use cases. But today we really wanted to focus in on our security posture and the things that we do to help harden your environment. And I know that's top of mind for everyone. The portal that you're looking at here is called Helios, and Helios is a software as a service platform. It's a SaaS platform that Cohesity offers to our customers at no charge. This is free with the Cohesity platform, and what it does is aggregate all of your Cohesity deployments or your Cohesity clusters into a single pane management UI. It's 100% HTML5, and underneath we are 100% REST-based API. So for those who are into automation, whether it's a more of an enterprise level manager like an Ansible, a Chef, a Puppet, or something as simple as PowerShell, everything that I'm doing in the UI can also be done via automation using the REST API. So this portal is available, as I said, it's SaaS-based, it's hosted by Cohesity, and so it can be accessed, from your corporate network or from home without a VPN. It's hardened and protected using role-based access control and multiple layers of security, so that you keep access limited to the individuals that you want to have access to the portal, and then further refined in terms of role-based access control to ensure that users who need only view type permissions have view, and others who need full management can do those sorts of things. So in this environment, you can see I'm monitoring the health of 74 clusters globally.
Yes, please.
Those are depicted on the map here. Each one has the kind of red, yellow, green stoplight colors indicating health. And we do a number of things through this console in terms of reporting, but really what as I said, I want to focus in on is this security function that you access by sliding down here to this thumbprint icon. So because Cohesity is backing up all of the data in your environment, we're hosting your NAS, your files, and your objects, and many times we're running dev and test for customers. We aggregate and host a ton of enterprise data on our platform. And as we're doing that, we're applying file system analytics and platform analytics to be able to identify patterns. The telemetry that we collect is sent back to the mothership, if you would, and aggregated by Helios and represented in a number of different ways. One of those is in a way that helps our customers identify ransomware. So if you'll imagine, we're backing up data. We know how much data is read on an average day, how much data is written on a given day, how much of the data that we write is encrypted typically. Then we can identify a significant increase in that type of anomalous write activity, and we'll report on that. So in this dashboard, we're showing that of those 70 some odd clusters that I showed in the first, we have 2 data centers where we've detected anomalies. And in those 2 data centers, we, in particular, have 4 VMs. And if you'll note, one important thing here is these sources are multiple vCenter servers, right? So I've taken 2 different data centers and 4 different vCenter servers, and I've detected anomalous write activity indicative of ransomware, and I've consolidated that into a single view and given you a single action page that you could go in and begin identifying and remediation. So if I click on this CentOS VM that I've highlighted there, you'll notice that we're providing several bits of information. One is we're telling you that we noticed the anomalous snapshot on March the 12th at 12:30 p.m. Immediately below that, you'll notice this green snapshot, which indicates our last known good snapshot or our last known good recovery point. And then as I follow this trend line, and again, this trend line is representing the amount of data written, right? And we're building a trend over time to identify the anomaly. And each one of these blue bubbles that I hover over are showing additional recovery points. So these are all clean backups, okay? Any of these can be points for recovery. I'm also indicating here that of this, this anomalous write, that we noticed 140 files modified. And this is a lab environment. We haven't gone and infected ourselves with ransomware, so we've done some things to kind of trick the system. But in a normal environment, right, if you have a file server with tens of thousands of files, this number of files impacted would potentially be huge, right? The other thing that we're showing here is the number of deleted files. So if you have the type of malware or that would go in and delete a bunch of files, we're going to report on that as well. So from here, I have the opportunity to go in and select this VM and add it to a recovery job. Okay? So I can begin recovery of this individual VM, or and as is the case is here, I want to remediate all of these VMs that were impacted in one swoop. So I can manually click the VMs that were impacted, or if I'm a normal enterprise customer and I have hundreds or thousands of VMs, I can select all of the VMs that I want to recover, again, across 2 different data centers, 4 different vCenters, and in one swoop, I can click the recover button, and now I'm automating the process of recovery, right? So Arctic Wolf is going to do a fantastic job of giving you information about infection and malware and ransomware. And you can think of Cohesity as being the complementary other half, which is how do we quickly get you recovered, right? And so by default, what we're going to do is we're going to allow you to recover each of these VMs. And keep in mind, this is a small lab. I mean, in a normal environment, these are probably hundreds of VMs. And I'm automatically, by default, going to recover these to their last known good snapshot. If you're, you know, in issues we've seen in real life scenarios, you know, ransomware takes time to propagate. It doesn't infect and encrypt the entire environment, you know, in an hour or all in one swoop. Sometimes it takes time to spread, and you may have multiple last known good recovery points, as I do in this example, and to go in and manually assign a recovery point for 1,000 VMs would take, you know, probably 12 hours just by itself, right? So, like I said, by default, we're saying the CentOS VM, your last known good snapshot was March 11 at 12:30. The AD01 VM, your last known good snapshot was March 14th at 9:48 a.m., so on and so forth. But through one recovery option, I can recover all 4 or 4,000 VMs to their last known good recovery point. And if you want to be more tailored in how you do that, obviously you can come in and select custom and define an individual recovery point of any of the clean snapshots that we highlighted before. So another thing that I wanted to show you, and I think is helpful to understand, is how Cohesity does a restore of an entire VM. So if you'll bear in mind that we're both a data protection and backup solution, as well as a data platform NAS solution, we have the ability to present NFS storage to VMware. Okay, so I don't actually have to write all of my data that I'm recovering back to primary storage in order to recover. I can actually power VMs up out of the backup file, if you would, and present an NFS data store directly from Cohesity to VMware and begin powering VMs up on Cohesity, right? So in this example, I've got a vCenter environment. I've got a single data store. It's called Site A, and you can think of this as your primary storage. And so this is your Nimble, your Pure, your HyperFlex, whatever primary storage is. Okay. And I have a number of VMs that I'm going to protect, and the one that I'm going to simulate ransomware on is this VM called Windows. Okay. So the process of recovery, and again, Helios automates this for you, but I want to show you the more manual process so that you understand what's happening under the covers, is we're going to go in and do an instant VM recovery. And I'm going to do that by typing in the name of the VM that we want to restore. I have the ability to define any of the recovery points. So if Helios was telling me that my last known good snapshot was at 4:19 p.m., then that's the snapshot that I would choose to recover from, as an example. I'm going to give it a prefix because I have a VM today that's in vCenter called Windows, and I want to be able to differentiate the two. So I'm going to provide a prefix. I'm going to try to type correctly. And then I have the options to power them on, attach or detach the network. And in my lab, I'm not concerned about IP conflicts, so I'm going to go ahead and power it on with network. So the time it takes to restore effectively is the time it takes to power on a VM. You can see that I've already created a new NFS data store directly off Cohesity and presented it to VMware. It took a second max. As after I create the data store, I'm going to add that particular VM to inventory. So I'm going to find that .vmx file, and I'm going to add it to inventory, and then I'm going to power it on. And at that point that I've powered it on, and in this example here, that took all of 17 seconds, I have a recovered VM. you'll remember the VM I'm recovering is called Restore Windows. And the last thing that I'm doing here is I'm storage vMotioning that VM back to primary storage. So in our example before, that's your Nimble, that's your Pure, right? So we're not going to leave the VM running on Cohesity long-term by default, right? I can if I need to. If the primary storage is offline or otherwise, unavailable, then absolutely I can recover and allow those VMs to run on Cohesity, right? But by default, and in most cases, customers will want that back on their production storage, their all-flash arrays, right? And we facilitate that. And so whether it's one VM that we're recovering or 100 VMs, these can be done very quickly. And the time it takes to restore in this case is effectively the time it takes Windows to boot or Linux to boot, right? And so I'm anticipating here when I take a peek that, yeah, Windows is still booting, but the data has been recovered, right? And applications, as soon as Windows boot, services start and SQL gets loaded, right? Services are back available to customers. Okay. Right, and that's all I had planned to show, guys. With that, I think I will probably hand the baton back to Jessica, but definitely also want to make sure that if there are any questions, I'm going to hang out and answer those.
Thank you so much, Sam. I am going to call out to our panelists. Do we see any questions coming through the Q&A?
So we have a question here from, does Cohesity work with scale computing VMs?
So good question. So scale computing, I have to admit that I'm not familiar with scale computing VMs. Is scale compute running a hypervisor? Is this VMware or Hyper-V or KVM or something along that line? Gotcha. Yeah. So yes, we do.
And we can always follow up afterwards if we need to get more clarification.
Yeah. So Robert said yes, it's KVM. So yes, we do support KVM as a hypervisor, and we can back up overt as a source. Yeah, absolutely. So think from a hypervisor perspective, think VMware, Hyper-V, KVM, Acropolis, and your major cloud players. So Google Compute, Azure VMs, and Amazon EC2, AWS EC2, along with physical servers and NAS and cloud and all sorts of other types of sources.
We had one other question here for Arctic Wolf going back. It says, what is the typical SLA in responding to a triggered alert or investigation?
So this is Nat. It is 5 minutes internally and then 30 minutes max to the customer.
I see another question here. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, for Cohesity, it says, does Cohesity have any integrations into ticketing systems? And does Cohesity perform its own implementations? And also, does Cohesity provide disaster recovery planning? Let's take those one at a time.
Awesome. Yeah, no, great questions. So Cohesity, yeah, so we do integrate with a number of different platforms. One that comes to mind is ServiceNow. We have an integration, a pack for ServiceNow that enables some automation through that. We also support SNMP, and you can direct SNMP traps to, say, Microsoft Operations Manager as an example. So we do have some integrations there. Of course, we're also a REST API, so if there needed to be any custom work done or custom scripting or integration above and beyond that, we can definitely facilitate that. We do our own installs. Many times it would be myself or one of my peers. We also have a growing PS team who will go out many times and do new installs. They're actually pretty lightweight, and so they generally take us somewhere around, for a virtual deployment, maybe an hour. On a physical deployment, if you include rack and stack and whatnot, probably 2 to 3 hours, but it's pretty easy setup. And then in terms of disaster recovery planning, I really think this is where our partners start to shine. Guys like Kyle, folks at like DataVox who can have a very intimate understanding of your individual environment and help provide a DR solution, right? Not just backup, but all of the other moving parts that go into making that successful. That's really where those guys step in. But we work very tightly with Arctic Wolf and with DataVox, and we do provide some of the automation, some of the runbook planning to help facilitate failover. Hopefully that answers the questions. If not, feel free to let me know and I'll follow up.
So far, that's all the questions.
Okay. Yeah, okay, yeah, is that it? It looks like Garrett had a question, but I think Kyle addressed it in chat.
Okay, guys, do any of the other panelists have any questions they've seen come through their chats or Q&A?
There was one question on elaborating more on the dedicated security team members that Arctic Wolf provides for Ty. Ty, would you like to speak up or respond to that one? Maybe you already did.
I responded to all the questions. Which one was it?
Elaborate more on the relationship or engagement with Arctic Wolf and that team. Do you meet monthly, quarterly? Do you review open tickets? How does that work?
We do have a monthly review with our designated security guys, going over any open tickets that was open, any questions that we have, any changes that needs to be made. We meet, depends on what we have going on that month, how long the meeting lasts. This last one we had lasted like 15 minutes because we didn't have that much of an incident, thank God. But like our first one and our second one, we did almost a full hour going over a lot of issues that we see that come in play. Stuff that, for example, people logging in from outside the United States. Well, we don't have anyone should be logging outside the United States, right? So we kind of worked through a lot of the stuff that we needed. And normally, if there's a lot of issues, they will go in detail. And the beauty of all this is, if we don't have the time to do the research and what needs to be done, the security guys will give us guidance of what we need to do, research the information that needs to be done, and send us that information so that I don't have to waste my time doing a lot of research. So that's one thing I really enjoy about it, because we are a two and a half man team, right? So supporting about 900 users. So I don't have time to do a lot of research on how to do certain things and what I need to do. Arctic Wolf does a lot of that for me. I just have to do the work myself.
Thank you.
Okay, unless we see any further questions, I'm not seeing anything. All right, well, in that case, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate everything everything today from Arctic Wolf and Cohesity. What a great presentation. I'm glad we could get some of these questions in. We want to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. And as a reminder, the recording for today's session will be emailed to all attendees 24 to 48 hours post-event. If you did enjoy today's session and would like to hear more, we do offer webinars weekly. Please check our DataVox website for more information on upcoming sessions. And as always, we would love to hear your feedback on our events. Once this webinar has ended, you will be redirected to a survey page. If you could please take a moment to complete the survey before closing out your browser, we would greatly appreciate it. Okay, that concludes our session for today. Thank you again to Arctic Wolf and Cohesity for a great presentation, and thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.